My administration would be Donald Trump's worst nightmare. I have many disagreements with the president, and I believe that we should be relentless and pursue all avenues and all meetings that could make our city affordable for every single New Yorker. I intend to make it clear to President Trump that I will work with him on any agenda that benefits New Yorkers.
You used to call New York City home. Would you feel comfortable living in New York City under a Mamdani administration?
Yeah, I would. I really would. Especially after the meeting. Absolutely.
What makes you comfortable?
We agree on a lot more than I would have thought. I think I want him to do a great job, and we'll help him do a great job. You know, he may have different views, but in many ways, we were discussing when Bernie Sanders was out of the race, I picked up a lot of his votes, and people had no idea because he was strong on not getting ripped off in trade and lots of the things that I've practiced and been very successful on. Tariffs, a lot of things. Bernie Sanders and I agreed on much more than people thought. And when he was put out of the race, I think quite unfairly, if you want to know the truth, many of the Bernie Sanders voters voted for me. And I felt very comfortable, frankly, in seeing that and saying that. And, it just turned out to be a statistical truth. But no, I feel very comfortable. I would feel very, very comfortable being in New York, and I think much more so after the meeting.
Because watching this meeting play out that was so hyped up with the White House calling Zohran Mamdani a communist just yesterday and basically saying, wait and see what happens when the two leaders are in the same room. The way this just played out with the president playing basically host to Mamdani inside the Oval Office, I think that entire interaction that just happened before cameras can basically be summed up as in that moment when a reporter was asking Zohran Mamdani, the mayor-elect, if he views President Trump as a fascist. And as Mamdani went to answer that question, before he could even really start to answer, Casey, the president intervened and laughed it off and said, that's okay, you can just say yes because it's easier than having to explain. He said that Zohran Mamdani could say yes, he believes President Trump is a fascist. He did not, and they continued to take these questions from reporters.
Boy. So we got to talk about the highly anticipated White House meeting between President Trump and Zohran Mamdani. Okay, it seems as if we have a meeting of opposites, right? On one side of the aisle, you got President Trump, and then on the other side of the aisle, you got Zohran Mamdani, who is a socialist, okay, a communist, according to Trump. According to Zohran Mamdani, Trump is a fascist, okay, far-right, racist, Hitler-esque dictator. And they met at the White House, and we got some fireworks. We just didn't get the type of fireworks that everybody expected. This meeting apparently was very civil, very cordial, and Trump and Zohran Mamdani were very complimentary of each other. Now, there are a lot of people who are shocked by this, but I'm actually not shocked by this at all. And I'm going to tell you guys exactly how I viewed this meeting and their interactions because, again, this is not very complicated stuff to understand, but people in the media and also liberals on mainstream liberal media, they're reading this incorrectly as per usual because they don't understand how anything works. So I'm going to explain to you guys exactly what I believe happened during this meeting. But first, I want to go ahead and play some highlights of this meeting so that people can get a feel for the questions that were asked and just how this meeting went down. Take a look.
Well, thank you very much. We've just had a great meeting, a really good, very productive meeting. We have one thing in common. We want this city of ours that we love to do very well. And I wanted to congratulate the mayor. He really ran an incredible race against, a lot of smart people, starting with the early primaries against some very tough people, very smart people. And he beat them easily. And I congratulated him. And we talked about some things in very strong common, like housing and getting housing built and food and prices. And the price of oil is coming way down.
You asked about your comment calling the president a fascist, and your answer was, both President Trump and I have been clear about our positions and our views. Mm-hmm. Are you affirming that you think President Trump is a fascist?
I've spoken about...
That's okay. You can just say yes.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Yeah. It's easier. It's easier than explaining it. I don't mind.
Mr. President, I wanted to ask you all...
Jack?
Mr. President, I wanted to know, one of the policies as well that Mayor-elect Mamdani talked a number of times about on the campaign was shifting the tax burden for property taxes from what he called minority communities to white-based communities and putting more taxes on white people. I also noticed that in your acceptance speech you didn't mention anything about America or Christians or white people in general, and so I didn't know if that was one of the policies that you guys had spoken about.
We focused on affordability. We focused on the cost of living crisis. What I will say is that I am very much interested in property tax reform because what we see right now in New York City is a system that is so inequitable that it can't even stand up in court. And the president and I spoke about the importance of not only building more housing, but also making sure that regulation of housing is something that is manageable to actually get through and not the cause of yet another weight that we see in our
But to
city.
be clear, you're continuing this idea of race-based property taxes.
No, to be very clear,
That's what you said.
no, the use of the term was a description of neighborhoods, not a description of intent.
So you intend to tax the whiter neighborhoods more?
No, we intend to create a fair property tax system because we want a New York City that is not only fair and equitable, but also one that every New Yorker can afford.
It sounds like you had a productive discussion, but just days ago you referred to President Trump as a despot who betrayed the country. You said you would be his worst nightmare and accused him of having a fascist agenda. Are you planning to retract any of these remarks in order to improve your relationship?
I think both President Trump and I, we are very clear about our positions and our views, and what I really appreciate about the president is that the meeting that we had focused not on places of disagreement, which there are many, and also focused on the shared purpose that we have in serving New Yorkers. And frankly, that is something that could transform the lives of the 8.5 million people who are currently struggling under a cost of living crisis, with 1 in 4 living in poverty. And the meeting came back again and again to what it could look like to lift those New Yorkers out of struggle and start to deliver them a city that they could do more than just struggle to afford it, but actually start to live in it.
And I've been called much worse than a despot, so it's not that insulting. Maybe I think he'll change his mind after we get to working together. Yes, please.
Mr. President, you've threatened to send federal troops to New York City. You both have differences when it comes to ICE agents in New York City. Mr. Mamdani, you've called ICE a rogue government entity. I wonder how you reconcile your differences on both of those issues.
Well, I think we're going to work them out, and I think that if we have known murderers and known drug dealers and some very bad people, you know, we want to get them out. And the mayor wants to have peace. We discussed this at great length, actually, maybe more than anything else. He wants to have a safe New York. Ultimately, a safe New York is going to be a great New York. If it's not safe, no matter how well we do with pricing and with anything else, we can talk about anything you want. If you don't have safe streets, it's not going to be a success. So we're going to work together. We're going to make sure that if there are horrible people there, we want to get them out. I think he wants to get them out maybe more than I do. So we'll work together. We discussed it at great length.
Yeah, so you seen that, you heard that. As I said at the beginning of this video, liberals are misinterpreting what they saw during this meeting and what it actually really means, because for whatever reason they believe, despite the obvious difference in power dynamics here, that somehow, some way, Zohran got over President Trump, or that Zohran made President Trump bend the knee or fold, or I don't know exactly what his liberal blue and on thought process is coming from in regards to their takeaways from this meeting, but somehow, some way, they thought that Zohran got over Trump. Take a look.
Look out, J.D. Vance. There's a new man in town. Zohran Mamdani has won Trump's heart. I think Donald Trump has a crush on him. First, Bubba. Now, Mamdani. You got to watch at 5 o'clock. We're going to talk about it. It was a love fest. But basically, Trump was gazing up at him like Nancy used to look at Ronald. For those of you who are old enough. You got to see it to believe it.
Baby, at this point, Zohran Mamdani needs to be studied because he is the blueprint on how the fuck you do it. Tell me how. He's not even mayor yet. Mayor-elect. He pulls up to the White House like a motherfucking pimp and had Donald Trump eating out the palms of his motherfucking hands. Give him his 10s. Now, mind you, this is the same fuck-ass 47 that was calling you everything but a child of God. Now he's saying this.
I met with a man who's a very rational person. I met with a man who really wants to see New York be great again. And I can say again, because New York was great.
Mamdani, what did you do? Because DT is giddy than a bitch. I've never seen him look at anybody like this. But the biggest chef's kiss about all of this Because Mamdani didn't have to change his values in order to get Donald Trump's respect. When Zohran, the self-proclaimed democratic socialist, pulled up, he got Donald Trump to agree on several policies, like affordability.
So Donald Trump just slobbered all over Zohran Mamdani. I mean, I have never seen Trump praise somebody so much. It was just a total love fest. Of course, Mamdani and Donald Trump met for the first time today in the Oval Office, and Trump was so complimentary of him. Like, after their meeting, he said, "I think you're going to have a really great mayor. The better he does, the happier I am, I will say." He also said, "I feel very confident that he can do a very good job. I think he's going to surprise some conservative people, actually." A reporter then asked Donald Trump, "Would you feel comfortable living in New York City under a Mamdani administration because he's a billionaire?" And Donald Trump said, "Yeah, I would." And this is not just me, a liberal, making it up. It was so bad that Fox News even commented on it, saying, "That's what we just watched. I think J.D. Vance is jealous. I think the president wants to use Mamdani as a running mate. They got along fantastic." And this is after Donald Trump has called Mamdani a communist, a socialist, all this nonsense. And he came out of that meeting saying, actually, Mamdani's focused on the right things and he likes him. I mean, we know that Donald Trump folds like a lawn chair when confronted in person, but I didn't expect it to be this bad. I mean, that was just stunning to watch.
Yeah, just ignorant takes, right? Just pure ignorance from liberals who, again, don't understand the damn thing at all about the world, about life, about business, about relationships. They don't understand shit. And when you don't understand shit, that is, again, what you get, right? What you just saw there is what you get. So I'm going to tell you guys my takeaway, but first I want to play one more news clip just so that people can get an idea of the mainstream liberal media reaction, because people are genuinely surprised to see two politicians meeting for the first time, not hating each other in public, right? So without further ado, let's get it.
Watching CBS News 24/7, and quite an extraordinary meeting in the Oval Office between President Trump and New York City Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani. They were both very complimentary, as you heard, very civil. And this comes just weeks after the president urged voters not to vote for him in New York City's mayoral election. The president expressed hope for Mamdani's tenure as mayor. Listen.
I feel very confident that he can do a very good job. I think he is going to surprise some conservative people, actually, and some very liberal people. He won't surprise them because they already like him.
Mamdani as well, also very complimentary of Trump about their meeting this afternoon.
I appreciated the meeting with the president, and as he said, it was a productive meeting focused on a place of shared admiration and love, which is New York City, and the need to deliver affordability to New Yorkers, the 8.5 million people who call our city their home, who are struggling to afford life in the most expensive city in the United States of America. We spoke about rent, we spoke about groceries, we spoke about utilities, we spoke about the different ways in which people are being pushed out, and I appreciated the time with the president, I appreciated the conversation. I look forward to working together to deliver that affordability for New Yorkers.
CBS News political reporter Zach Hudak joining us live now. Zach, a lot of eyes on this conversation, on this meeting. You know, quite a different tone before this election. The president really now giving his stamp of approval for Mamdani, the two of them having a conversation, if you will, as opposed to prior to the election. Your thoughts and take on this?
Well, Jules, I think it was somewhat of a surprise to all of us to see how well they were getting along. But I think at the heart of that is what they said they talked about before they let the cameras in, which is making New York affordable for New Yorkers. And I think really what that illustrates is the fine line between the far-right campaign that President Trump ran and the
far-right. Far-right.
A far-left Democratic Socialist campaign that Mamdani ran. We saw this even in the past with a lot of similarities between President Trump's campaigns and Bernie Sanders' campaigns. I think the reality here is that while they are on different ends of the political spectrum, they are both populists, and they both realize that what Americans care about most right now, and we continue to see this in the polling that we keep doing, is affordability and bringing prices down for Americans and helping everyday Americans. I think the other thing that played a factor in the two of them getting along so well is they are both extremely charismatic politicians. I think both of them, a lot of their political strength comes from their ability to captivate a crowd. And I think they recognize that in one another, and they recognize that there are ways that they could actually help one another. Now, there are some difficulties here. We know that House Republicans, for the most part, are gearing up to run in 2026 in the midterms, largely against Mamdani. They plan to paint their opponents as connected to this Democratic socialist who is the mayor, or going to be the mayor of the largest city in the country. That does create, obviously, a tension between the way that President Trump is talking about them. We saw one of the questions from the
Yeah, but see, that is where reality is probably headed, right? Because what people don't understand, again, it's just a basic thing when it comes to business, relationships, networking, whatever, right? Especially in politics, this is true. You have shared interest, okay? And despite the fact that Zohran Mamdani campaigned on me anti-Trump, and President Trump also had some things to say about Zohran Mamdani, the reality is that Zohran Mamdani needs Trump more than Trump needs Zohran Mamdani, right? Zohran Mamdani is already understanding that as mayor of New York City, he doesn't have any real power. He can't enact anything that he wants to do if he has Hochul not on his side, right? If he can't get the power structure, the powers that be on his side, he's not getting a damn thing done. If he doesn't have to put the United States president on his side, he's not getting a damn thing done, right? So you got to understand the power structure going into this, right? This is why it's so comical to watch liberals pretend as if Zohran somehow, some way got over Trump. Zohran did not get over Trump. Trump is in charge, right? He's clearly the alpha in the room, and Zohran is basically being deferential towards the president because he knows that the president has all the power. That's why you're seeing Zohran say, you know what? We're not going to have socialists challenge Hakeem Jeffries yet, or we're not going to have socialists challenge Kathy Hochul yet. Now, he may endorse that in the future, but he knows right now in the immediate future that that's not helping him in what he wants to do, which he has to deliver on these big promises that he made, regardless of whether or not the promises are actually good, bad, whether or not they're actually going to make life affordable. That's not really what matters. What matters is that he made these promises, right? He promised a lot of free stuff, and free stuff ain't free, right? He knows that. His supporters might be too stupid to know that, but he knows that. So he knows from a practical perspective that it's better for me to go into this meeting with the president and to be deferential, to be cordial, to be nice, to try to build a relationship, attempt to build a working relationship, rather than to go in and antagonize the president, to have animosity towards the president, to tell the president, I think you're a fascist, you're a terrible person, you're Hitler. That's not going to get you anywhere, right? In fact, that's the number one way to undermine your tenure as mayor from the beginning, right? From the beginning, that's the best way, the quickest way to make sure that you don't succeed. Does that mean in the long term that Zohran and President Trump are going to get along? No, it doesn't mean that at all. Now, from the perspective of President Trump, there's no reason for him to go into this meeting and say, oh, Zohran, you're a communist, you're a socialist, I don't agree with any of your policies, you said this about me, you said that about me, you're a terrible person. There's no advantage to doing that. Now, what was said behind closed doors? We don't know. I'm just talking about what they're saying publicly, right? Because behind closed doors, they could have went at each other's throats, okay? But publicly, what they're going to show the public is obviously that, hey, we can be civil, right? We can sit down in the same room. We can discuss issues. We can disagree on things. We can agree on things. And we can talk about what we agree on and focus on the positives rather than the negatives. And that's clearly what happened here in this press conference. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, President Trump is from New York City. He wants to see New York succeed. Despite what these liberals may think, he doesn't want to see New York City fail. So instinctively, he's going to want to support the mayor regardless of who the mayor is, right? He's going to want to support. He's going to want to see the city do well. They may have different ideas on how the city can do well, but they want to see the city do well. And in some cases, they probably do agree on a lot of stuff, right? President Trump does have a populist appeal, just like Zohran Mamdani. That's just the reality of our current politics. But what you're seeing from Trump in regards to how he treated Zohran Mamdani doesn't really mean anything outside of the fact that he's a businessman and he understands relationships and networking. That in an initial meeting with somebody, even a political adversary, you're not going to shit on that person. You're not going to antagonize that person when you have shared mutual interests, because the reality is that you're not going to get anything done. You're not going to accomplish anything by starting the initial meeting off on the wrong foot. Now, who knows, again, where it goes from here, but at the very least from the beginning, you have an open mind and you say, okay, I'm going to attempt to work with this person. Whether or not it actually works out in the future, that remains to be seen. But this is no different than how President Trump has approached any of his meetings or having political or foreign adversaries in the White House or meeting with political or foreign adversaries. Like, for example, when he meets Putin, when he meets Zelensky, when he met the president of Syria, a lot of people made a big deal about that. And it's like, well, what do you expect him to do? The guy is the president of Syria now. Regardless of how you feel about his past and what he's done before in the past, which obviously nobody supports, he's the president. Do you want stability in the Middle East or no? Right? Because we can continue to have an unstable Middle East and, you know, be antagonistic towards the guy. But I just think it's better for all of our allies, for everybody involved. It's better for the United States of America to have a stable Middle East rather than to continue to have these conflicts and instability. Look at his relationship with Saudi Arabia. Look at his relationship with the Emirates. Even when he met Xi in China, it wasn't openly antagonistic, right? That's not how you operate as a businessman. That's not how you operate in the real world. That may be how you operate on the internet. That may be how you operate when you're running a political campaign, right? When you're trying to appeal to certain groups of people. Yeah, you say that when, again, you're campaigning, when you're in politics mode, right? When you're trying to win elections. Yeah, you say the worst things about a person. But when you get behind closed doors and you get down to the nitty gritty and you understand the power dynamics, all that political theater, all that stuff for social media, that goes out the door. None of that matters. And in this situation, make no mistake, don't let these leftists fool you. Zohran is not the power player here. As New York City mayor, he does not have power. He doesn't. We saw that with Eric Adams. Eric Adams was allied with President Trump. Wasn't that much that Eric Adams could do to actually really help the administration, because ultimately at the end of the day, the mayor of New York is weak. Zohran knows that. So Zohran knows that, well, ultimately, he needs the president more than the president needs him. Let's be honest. Zohran knows that the power is with the governor. The power is with the state legislator. That's where the power is at. The power is not with the New York City mayor. So, again, this is why you're seeing Zohran, who, again, campaigned on Trump being evil, the worst person ever. He's terrible, fascist, Hitler, right? He campaigned on that. But when he actually got elected, reality kicked in and he realized, wait, I really don't have that much power. I'm still a little guy, right? In the grand scheme of politics, right? And how power works. He's still a little guy. He doesn't really have that much power. He can't fulfill all the promises that he made on the campaign trail. He can't do it. Now, again, idiots voted for him thinking that he could do it, but he can't really do it. He knows he can't do it. He knows he's going to need help. And because he knows that and he's basically moving in a practical way, that is what you see here. President Trump wants to see his city, the city that he grew up in, the city that he loves, do well. He doesn't want to undermine the city if he doesn't have to, right? If he doesn't have to, he doesn't want to do that. Of course he doesn't want to do that. So yeah, he's going to be open-minded and say, okay, well, this guy might be a socialist, but I'm going to listen to him, hear him out. Let's see if we can agree. Let's see if we disagree and go from there. If the relationship works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But you don't undermine a relationship. You don't destroy the relationship at the beginning, right? You don't accomplish anything like that. And Zohran approached it from the same angle. So that's why I'm not surprised. But does it really mean anything going forward? Not really. It just means that the initial meeting wasn't terrible, right? They didn't hate each other, right? During the initial meeting, and that they're going to at least attempt to make a good faith effort of working together to make the city better. But that doesn't mean that it's actually going to work. That doesn't mean that the relationship is going to work. That's not what it means. It just means that they were open-minded in the first meeting. We're going to go from there and see what happens. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.